Hey everybody, welcome to a new video, this week's video. First off, I did not take the upgrade. I was going to try to grab the Lance captain slot up in Oakland. Just with everything going on and you know, having to commute again, I got scared. So I decided not to. I'll hold off, see if I can get a Lance captain slot here in Phoenix in the next few months. I also got Invisalign too, so those of you that have done it, it's different. But anyways, yeah, so that was the plan. I didn't take the upgrade. I'm gonna hold out for Phoenix, kind of see what happens in the next few months, kind of go from there. But today we're gonna talk to a really cool guy. His name is Armon. He has just had a fantastic career, really young. I think it's gonna be really relevant to a lot of y'all that are just starting out, getting into the training pipeline. He's been there. He's recently gone through flight instructing in Cirrus. He had a job at a regional, and now he's at one of the big fractionals out there. So we're gonna give a talk to him and see what he has to say about the aviation industry right now. So let's go.
Get it that I'm never going back. Going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going up. Get it that I'm never going up, going up, going up, going up, going up.
All right, guys, we are in the hangar and we've got the Green Hornet. I actually haven't flown the Green Hornet in like over a month, maybe almost 2 months. But anyways, hey, I've got Armon here.
Hey guys, nice to meet y'all.
Well, today we're going to do a little bit of an interview. Armon is a great, like I said in the intro, a great resource right now because Armon just went through all his training. He went to fly a 135, a Part 135 company, went off to the regionals. Now he's at a major fractional. So I think, and this is all relatively within the
last 3 years or so.
Yeah, so really fresh stuff. I think it will help you guys. And yeah, let's talk to Armon. Well, cool. Armon, let's start off by basically going over kind of your history, your journey through aviation, and you know, some of the things you learned along the way, getting your ratings, and then moving on to your different steps. I'm sure they would love to hear that.
Sure, absolutely. So started flying when I was 17 years old, about 2 weeks after I graduated high school. Jumped in an airplane right away and never looked back. I fell in love with it right away. So kind of started out with a discovery flight is what kind of took me away. From there, I earned my licenses in about 1 year and 6 months. I was working and going through college at the same time, so I was able to kind of balance that. Balance is really important when you're coming into flight training to not get burnt out. Right after that, I got hired at Sierra Charlie Aviation, pretty much after I finished my CFI. Flight instructed for a little bit, about a little over 1.5 years. With COVID, things kind of got interesting with the job market. Luckily, I was able to get hired at a small 135 charter company here out of Scottsdale, transition into my first jet, which was really exciting, kind of hanging on to a tiger's tail to an extent. From there, I decided to go on to the regional airlines and decided, you know, I really like the charter flying a lot more, and I now currently work for one of the largest fractional companies out there. And so
I guess, what was the leap like going from flight instructor? Well, let's go back, even from your commercial, getting your CFI, and then now, hey, congratulations, you're a CFI.
Right.
Go teach people. How was that?
Absolutely. Honestly, for those of you who are just getting their commercial license and getting their CFI, if you're getting the airplane with your first student, you're gonna feel like you have no idea what you're doing. Best advice somebody ever gave me was, you're the best pilot they've ever flown with, so act like it. And so, you know, it was definitely nerve-wracking. I was 19 years old at the time when I was instructing. Wow. So, you know, I was definitely nervous. I was like, you know, who let me do this? But I learned right away. The students were very helpful. Honestly, like I said, you know, you're the best pilot they've ever flown with. And sure. With that, you know, they kind of feed your, you know, your confidence, and you're like, you know what, I can do this. And so that was definitely tough. You know, so for those of you who are out there, you're not alone, don't worry about it. But yeah. Well,
that probably also gives you that motivation to stay on top of the books, because right. They are looking up to you. You are in a leadership role.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I probably impress upon you guys too. Once you start going through this, you are a leader. You're the frontline leader. When you're instructing, your students are looking up to you. When you're in that charter department, you know, your passengers are looking up there. Absolutely. Going, I have my life in this person's hands up there. So, right. You know, it kind of, same thing with me. When I go through training, I take it very seriously, and because I know there's people that are depending on me to make sure I'm the best pilot possible.
So with that, preparation was really important. So when I was first starting out instructing, if, you know, I was going through a tougher subject area like weather or systems, I would always spend a couple hours the night before reviewing. So, you know, I'm giving those students the proper training and, you know, not giving them false information, because, you know, as you'll learn as you're going through your CFI primacy, the first thing that comes out of your mouth as an instructor is what they're going to remember. And if it's incorrect, they're going to remember that too. So really important.
Cool. All right. Well, speaking of CR Charlie, we're in front of one of CR Charlie's Cessna 172s. Tell me what it was like to fly, and for those that maybe aren't in Scottsdale, maybe they're somewhere in the U.S. or even overseas. What do you look for when you're thinking about becoming a flight instructor? Maybe even before that, do you look at a flight school that you're thinking about becoming an instructor with? Would that be a good flight school? And yeah, how did you make that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of jumped around flight schools a little bit. One thing that caught my eye about Sierra Charlie is their brand new aircraft, and also the G1000 that they have here. Going into a jet, or even, you know, flying the simulators when you're getting your type ratings for jets, seeing the same kind of electronic flight display really just pushed me along compared to the guys who came from a smaller 6-pack. So,
gotcha.
You know, looking at that, and with choosing a flight school, environment is everything. Here at Sierra Charlie, we're really family friendly, and it just, everybody hangs out here. We're all friends. We're one tight-knit family. So, you know, when you're down and don't want to study anymore, or you're struggling through a written test or something like that, you know, having a group of friends here to help you out was really helpful for me. And I think that's something that you can't pass up at a flight school. So
yeah, I think culture is definitely big. Right?
Absolutely.
Culture is definitely big. There's competition in it,
right?
But there's also, you know, it's nice when you can lean on somebody, one of the flight instructors here or one of your classmates to basically get you over a hump.
Absolutely.
You know, which the humps will come, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What did you like most about flight instructing, I guess, in the Cessna? Let's take a look at this guy.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I personally really like instructing. I still work, like I said, I work at a major fractional, and I still come back and instruct on my days off. I enjoy it. It's cool to give somebody an experience of flight. This morning I did a discovery flight actually in this bird here, and it's just cool to see somebody's reaction when they take off from the ground for the first time. It's an awesome feeling to pass that along to somebody, because I remember my discovery flight like it was yesterday. And so, you know, that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me wanting to come back and instruct.
So Armon, tell me about your jump from this 172 that you were flying, and now you're in, I think you flew a CJ first? Is that the first?
Yep, citation first.
How was that jump going from a 172 to a CJ?
It was a big jump. I mean, taking off at 55 knots to rotating down the runway at 120 knots was a big jump. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like hanging onto a tiger's tail, quite literally. By the time I had, you know, the mental capacity to look up, we were already halfway to California. And so definitely a big learning curve. But again, flying cockpits like the G1000 really kind of helped me with stuff like that. But it was a big jump, and most people would probably say the same. So
nice. All right, we're standing right in front of a CJ4, and same lineup as
same type. Yep.
So this is basically the first jet airplane that you flew.
First jet. Yep.
You went from a 172 to this guy.
Yep. Well, from that to a Seminole to this guy, but yeah.
Oh, to a Seminole to this guy. That's very true.
Still, just as slow as a Cessna.
Yeah.
Just with 2 engines.
So what advice could you give some of those that are maybe in that flight instructor realm right now, and they're about ready to make that jump? Hey, we're trying to film here. What would you say, what kind of advice would you give a flight instructor that's maybe at that point where he's about to make the jump, maybe going to a regional, maybe going to fly corporate?
Sure.
What bit of advice would you give them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I think the toughest thing was going through instrument knowledge. So shooting an arrival for the first time, not just being vectored onto an approach, that was big. Looking over departure procedures, actually flying a SID or ODPs and stuff like that really helped. I did spend quite a bit of time looking over that. I noticed that's where a lot of people struggled in training when they didn't have that experience of looking at a SID or a star. And so that would be probably some of the best advice I could give, is just look over your instrument knowledge.
So get into the plates.
Sure. Yeah.
Look at the legend. Start, if there's something on there that you don't know, basically get into the books and find out what that is.
Absolutely. Speed restrictions, little details and stuff that could get you in trouble when you're doing an arrival on a jet is probably what you're going to want to pay attention to. So those were the biggest things that I struggled with initially, and saw most people did too.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest, I guess, was it the speed that you noticed first, or what was the biggest thing you noticed first about jumping jumping out of a Cessna and into the jet world?
I mean, it was the speed. I mean, to see the the airspeed indicator at 270 knots versus 100 and you're full throttle trying to do 100 knots was definitely the biggest jump when you're pulling that throttle back trying to not overspeed the airplane when you're down low, and so just the speed is what gets to you. When you're 50 miles out from an airport in a jet, you're really close, right? Whereas in a Cessna you could have lunch, dinner, and everything, watch a movie before you get there,
have some soup.
Pretty
relax.
much. So the speed is what got to me.
Gotcha. And how long did it take for you to get used to that speed?
Honestly, probably about 50 hours into flying, I kind of noticed, I was like, okay, cool. I kind of have an idea of, when we're 100 miles out, 150 miles out, here's kind of stuff we want to be doing and paying attention. So I would say right around 50 hours, I started feeling pretty comfortable with, just the jet operations and arrivals and stuff like that. So
now we're here obviously at Scottsdale. There is a lot of training here at Scottsdale as well as big airplanes out there. You can see, lots of private jets here. There's a Carbon Cub that is pretty awesome, taxiing over there to the FBO. But talk about the difference in, maybe, again, not everybody's here at Scottsdale, but there's busy airports out there, but there's also airports out there that aren't very busy. How does one what did you do to get used to the amount of traffic, the amount of volume on the radio, the amount of traffic in the pattern and all that? What did you do? Yeah,
luckily I was able to fly out of Scottsdale for everything. But for those of you who aren't, near a major airport like Scottsdale, take a cross country to some of those bigger, near airports that are close to the Class Bravos. Try to do a Bravo transition. Hit the LA Basin area. That's a really, really busy set of airspace. So I would often do that. Luckily, like I said, here at Scottsdale, we're really busy. But like I said, for those of you, take a cross country, use those cross country hours to really enhance your training and gain some experience. I think that's a big one.
Since he's gone through charter, regional, and fractional, let's just break that apart. Let's go kind of the differences between, flying for a 135 charter operator. And then you making the leap to a regional and then going to a fractional after that. So what are the differences between like a 135 company versus, the regional kind of lifestyle, training, all that stuff, and then we'll talk about the fractional.
So the charter company I used to work for was a small charter company based out of Scottsdale. We had a floating fleet of airplanes, so basically we worked 10 on, 8 off schedule, so 10 days straight, and then I would come home for 8 days.
And floating means the airplanes are throughout the United States. So they don't come back to Scottsdale.
Absolutely. We had a couple home based here in Scottsdale, and then we had a bunch based just wherever they'd fall at the end of that rotation, the next crew would go pick it up. So that entailed airlining out to the airplanes. What's cool about that, which we'll get into with the regional stuff, is we had guaranteed tickets to get out to the airplane. You know what I'm getting at here with commuting. So it was really cool. It was a fun schedule. Differences between small 135s and the major fractional companies is the schedule, some of the benefits that you get, especially when it comes to the airline travel, including points, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But just smaller operations. Pay obviously at a smaller charter company is going to be a little different than a major fractional, and things like that.
But that's typically kind of if you go from what I've seen at recruiting. I see a lot of people coming from flight instructing going to the regionals.
Yes.
I see some going to charter, but you don't see a lot coming from flight instructing to fractionals, and that's because they require more time.
Right. And so basically, to get to a major fractional, they're gonna want more experience. So working at a small 135 charter company, getting that jet experience. A lot of the major fractionals don't want a guy fresh from the 172. It's happened before, but they're definitely looking for you to have some sort of experience in the industry first, so you can bring a little bit of your experience and knowledge to help further their company. So
I think that's a good point. Having a little bit of experience in the charter world, because it is completely different than the airline.
Right.
What do you think the biggest difference is between doing charter and fractional versus the regional that you went to?
So a lot of the times when you get to when you get to a charter company, looking for a home-based position versus a position you have to move to. So if you're home-based, that means you can live where you are. For example, I lived in Scottsdale. The place I worked at was in Scottsdale, but if I wanted to, I could live in New York and still work for that company. So you live where you want to, and they airline you out to the aircraft.
That's cool.
Where at the regionals, you're kind of at their mercy. Wherever the company needs you, you go to. So for the specific regional I worked to, I was based out of Boise, right out of training. So kind of getting into commuting,
Phoenix to Boise, there's not a whole lot of
flights.
A whole lot of flights, yeah.
So, I would take a lot of Southwest flights, actually. I enjoyed those flights. But yeah, so you're riding the jump seat, you're stressing about, like I mentioned earlier, you don't have a guaranteed ticket when you're commuting. You're on standby. And so a lot of the times you're stressing to get to work and waking up a couple hours earlier than you would have to if you had a guaranteed ticket working a home-based charter position. And so that was a tough one. And commuting, one of the biggest advices I could give for if you're going to a regional, if you have the means, move to where you're based. Because
I would say that for a major as well.
Wherever you are. For the airlines, it changes your quality of life drastically. And so I think that kind of took it out a little bit on me. I like Phoenix and Scottsdale, and I have my family, and I grew up here, so I didn't really want to move for the job just yet, and so that kind of took it out on me a little bit. But yeah, I'd say commuting is definitely something to consider when going to a regional versus picking a fractional or a Part 135 charter company.
And I'll note also, both Armon and I have had pretty similar. I flew charter. And then I flew for a large fractional, actually the same fractional that I flew with. And then, I obviously went off to Southwest. So we're not coming, a lot of times you get like the career airline person like, oh no, you got to do airlines, that's the only way to go. And, the charter or the fractional person is always like, no, this is the way that you want to go. I would say that we're trying to approach it from an unbiased position. We've seen kind of both spectrums. So we're just trying to give you guys a little bit of a knowledge that you can make a decision on. And also, we talked about it earlier, where do you want to go, right?
Right, that's the tough part. I mean, honestly, staying at a major fractional, especially the one I'm at now, is honestly a place I could retire at. Going to the major airlines for me as of right now isn't a goal. I've kind of hit where I want to be for now, and so I'm not putting out any of the majors as a option. Always leaving options open and all that. But as of right now, we were talking about picking what you want to do versus charter versus the major airlines or regionals. Just be happy with what you do. I mean, if I'm being completely candid and honest, when I was commuting and going to the regionals, I kind of was starting to lose touch of why I was doing this, and so I missed that feeling of loving going to work, and I was like, you know what, I got to make a change before this ends up crushing my career and what I've worked for, and so I think that's the best advice is just do what makes you happy, and kind of go from there, and so
So on that topic of doing what makes you happy, let's go through pros and cons of each. And break that down. So, what are the pros of flying charter? I'll let Armon answer, and then mine's a little bit dated. I flew corporate back in like 2004, but we'll go through the pros and cons of each.
Honestly, some of the things about charter that I love is just the variety of flying. So when I was working at the airlines, I got my schedule for the month, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to go to, honestly, probably the same 15 airports, over and over again. The variety is different. Whereas when I was flying charter, the night before I'd plan for one trip, I'd get a phone call an hour later, and they're like, actually, you're going to do something totally different. And so I miss the spontaneity of just not knowing where you're going the next day. So, and I know that's not for everybody. Some people like, they have to know what's going on.
Okay. And it also, when you're younger, I have to say, Armand's a little bit younger than me. But when you're younger, that's exciting, right? But as you get through your career, at least where I'm at in my life with kids and all that, I like to know where I'm going. So, it does change. But again, it is what you make of it.
It all depends. And so, I've talked to some of the guys that have been at the company I work for 20 years, and they go, honestly, every trip I go on, I'm on a new airport that I've never been to, and I've been doing this for 20 years. And so to me, that's fascinating, and I'm excited to constantly be learning and going somewhere new and all that stuff versus, I was kind of starting to get a little bit, I guess I hate to say it, complacent, just going to the same place over and over again, typing the same frequency. And so it's a little bit different. I mean, you go to new places, obviously exploring. I'm sure you've seen at Southwest just tons of different places, some places that I probably won't see. And so, that's, for me, that was the biggest pro, was not knowing what's going on the next day. I call it controlled chaos. I love the controlled chaos of Charter World. So
what would you think the biggest con is?
Sometimes the schedules can be long. So you mentioned family and all that stuff, and right now I have no kids or anything like that, and so working a schedule where I can be gone for 10 days at a time is not, you know, a problem for me right now. In the long run, you know, the future wife might not like that. So, you know, working at the airlines, I'm sure I explained multiple times, and you know, we can chat about it a little bit with the scheduling, being home a little bit more often. But like I said, typically with the charter world, you're gone for a longer stretch of time, and then home for a little bit more time. So I would say that schedule could probably get to you. You know, got to me a little bit, but you know.
Yeah, that was where I worked. We were doing 8 on 6 off.
Yep.
And we were probably one of the better places, the charter companies that I worked at. So I did have a schedule, and you know, again, the pros that we talked about too was I love being like a super duper baller on like airlines with my mileage, on my hotel points. You get to keep all the points. That was definitely a big pro for me, and the con was definitely the schedule got a little bit long. So
yeah, to that kind of perks, I guess, benefits. A lot of charter companies will allow you to keep hotel points, rental car points, airline points. So you're gaining all that status, but what makes up for it is you have flight benefits and I don't. you can hop on any piece of metal out there with an airline on it and get on there with your family. Whereas kind of within charter world, those hotel points kind of make up for that. So kind of even keels out, but you know, kind of something to think about when you're looking at, you know, regionals versus charter.
Right, and then going into the fractional, that's almost like you get a shot in the arm, because a lot of these fractionals will have they have an agreement with some of these hotels or airlines where you're automatically elevated to their highest tier of reward. So that's
super nice too. Yeah, so you gain status right away as soon as you get hired with most of these places, or within the first couple of trips, you're already a diamond, gold, elite, whatever member.
And I will tell you, that is the biggest thing I missed from flying at my big regional or my fractional that I flew at. Once my tier started dropping off, and you know, I don't get the free breakfast anymore, or the concierge lounge.
No more late checkout.
No more late checkout. That was a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so let's the one thing. Let's talk about the fractional now.
Sure.
The fractional, I guess the pro on that is for me and for us, it's the large fractionals have a little bit more stability. So the thing I didn't like about corporate was, you know, owner X could sell the airplane, and guess what? You're out of a job. Or, you know, the company may try to find you another position, but really, if there's no positions, you're out of a job. Whereas if you go to one of these large fractionals, it's almost like a major airline where you have some financial stability in that. Not saying that they couldn't, you know, furlough you or whatever, but it's a little bit less of a probability of being furloughed or let go at a large fractional.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you on that. I mean, a lot of some things to be careful of is, you know, you'll find small 135 charter operators, you know, some, we call them 134 and a halves, that are barely doing things the legal way. And so really, if you're looking out there for a job, if you're, you know, CFI, you got 500-600 hours and you're looking for a job, you know, really be careful with what you're looking for. Really do your research on that company. Because kind of like you were mentioning, stability, it can fluctuate, but make sure you're going to a good charter company as well, too.
That is true. Especially, obviously, I do hiring. You want to make sure that you are doing things correctly, because heaven forbid you get in a situation where you were kind of skirting a rule or regulation and you get violated on that. That's going to come up in an interview, if you get the interview, you know, if you're trying to move up. So what about advice? Like some last parting advice to the guys that are getting ready, guys and gals that are getting ready to start flight training right now. What would you give them as a bit of advice if they're like, hey, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to the flight school, or I'm going to go to a airline training center and go through the whole deal. What bit of advice would you give them as they're starting out?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As you know, as you've seen, the market is hot right now. If you are questioning about becoming a pilot, I mean, you've seen it as, you know, being part of the hiring department. I mean, pilots are needed right now. And if you're kind of teetering on the edge, right now is a great time to start your flight training. Go take a discovery flight. Figure out the financial ways, you know, to start flight training, you know. Pick up extra shifts. I used to work at a restaurant to get through some flight training, and so just really go out and do it. I mean, there's times if you're looking to a career change. When I was flight instructing, I had tons of career changers. I had guys in their 40s, even closer to their 50s, who were like, "It's been my dream as a kid to fly. I know now is the time. Let's go do it." And so, for those of you out there in those same shoes, you know, get out there and do it. or for like myself, I had no idea what I wanted to do outside of high school. I'm finishing up my business degree at ASU right now, but I got in an airplane, fell in love, and if you're in that same shoes, younger me, I wish younger me had told me, come on, keep going, and so get out there and go fly. I think that's going to be some of the best advice to give.
Right, and yeah, I get flying's expensive, but there are a lot of organizations out there like AOPA and NBAA has scholarships. There's a lot of organization out there that can help you with that financial cost. And like Armon, I got my private license. I was thankful that my parents helped me out, but I had to actually work to help myself out as well. So I got a job bagging groceries, and I remember a 152 cost $37 an hour back then. Dating myself, but I remember I would bag groceries for tips at the Air Force Base.
That's awesome.
As soon as I got $40 in my hand,
go fly.
I would go fly for an hour. So that was after I got my private. So I was just trying to build some time there, but 1 hour at a time bagging groceries on the weekend. So
I tell everybody, I'm like, think of this, kind of as a college, investment in yourself. People will go to Harvard and Yale and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education. This is your education to get to an airline. So pick a good school. It's going to be a big financial cost at first. We all know that. We've all had to take the hit. We bagged groceries. I've flipped hamburgers. We have all had to do it, and so now is the time to do it as well, because you're the career path, and like I said, like you've seen, it's hot right now.
The market is great for pilots, and it's going to be it's going to be up and down. So right now is on the up. So if you are thinking about it, I would highly suggest going out, like Armon said, go take a discovery flight at your local flight school. And really do some research on where you think you would want to learn to fly. So that would be the one bit of advice I would give you, because again, the future is bright. There's going to be a big need. The regional airlines right now are I think they're looking to
crazy.
try to break the numbers on hiring. So and with that, we've just talked about charter, regional, large fractionals. Everybody's going to need pilots because there's not enough pilots out there. So we're going to need people to start flying and getting into flight schools and all that. Because eventually I'm going to retire and I'm going to need you guys to fly me around. So
pretty much, yeah. I mean, honestly, like I said too, with that discovery flight, I always recommend to do those before you really dive into the training.
Correct. Yeah.
You'll know right away if you love it. I mean, I remember my discovery flight like it was yesterday, looking down at that wheel leaving the ground. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And so discovery flight, I always say, if you end up hating it, well, you got a cool airplane ride at a discounted rate. Or if you love it and start training, there's your first hour at a discounted rate. So
for sure.
I always like to say that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know me, I'm always pushing the discovery flight. So for those of you guys that are thinking about doing it and you're like, hey, I'm going to go do a discovery flight, comment down below. Let me know how it goes, because I'm actually really curious to hear it. And if you're on your journey, hey, comment down below. What are some of the pitfalls that you got into, and how did you work your way out? Because it's not just you. There's tons of people that are going through the same thing that you're going through right now. So maybe that will help somebody. And I really do want to thank Armon for sitting down and talking. Again, he's fresh. He's just gone through this. He's not like a dinosaur like me who's done it like 20 years ago. But, it's really nice to have Armon here and tell you exactly what's going on out there right now. So
appreciate
it. Yeah.
Appreciate
and thanks for watching. And again, comment down below. Let me know where you're at in your journey, and what you're doing to get through to pay for training, and some of the hurdles out there and how you're overcoming them. I think it's very motivational to others out there on there. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you guys found value in it. If you did, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't. And until next week, we'll see you.
Get it that I'm never going back. Going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going